EMS employee promo store up and running. So if you're looking for some hoodies or t-shirts or whatever else they're selling, you can find that out. What does it say? Oh, you can check into Dean's office in Edmonton. He's got promo stuff here in Edmonton. Do you?
Yes.
I have it actually.
Actually, Anna took it,
Okay.
and so it's in Anna's office. And in Calgary, you'll just have to rampage through the communications office to find some promo material. This morning we want to welcome Eric. He's the pastor of Knox Evangelical Free Church here in Edmonton and is a wonderful friend of the Mustard Seed. And he's going to come and share thoughts of wisdom and inspiration with us this morning. Thanks, Eric.
I have to cram and come up with thoughts of wisdom right away. They say that the camera adds 10 pounds. How many cameras do you have? Like on me? Wow. Joking. That's an old joke. I'm trying to warm up. Hi, Foothills Boardroom. Awesome. Okay, and then we got Faith Connect. How you guys doing? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have like a conversation with you guys and with these guys. And so if I turn away, please. I'm not. You haven't offended me. I'm good. Anyway, welcome. I'm Pastor Eric over at Knox Church. We're in Old Strathcona. We love the Neighbor Center. We love the Mustard Seed that became the Neighbor Center. We love what's going on, and specifically because we're in the heart of where. And I'm going to use the phrase neighbor just as a way to cover people who deal with poverty, people who are new Canadians, the folks that the Mustard Seed work with. And because I know that you don't have just one kind of person, you have stories. And anyway, we run into a lot of neighbors within our church. And yet, as a church, ironically, all of the Bible study that we've done and all the theological training hasn't prepared us to be a help. You think out of all the education that we've had would help us. And so we need you guys. And so we're one of the many thousands and thousands of groups of people out there that you may not see, but we're praying for you, we're pulling for you, and your success is our success. And so just I could begin with that. And then I'm going to bring up a very, very uncomfortable point about me. During the playoffs right now with the NHL, I was okay that Edmonton was doing okay. However, my heart belongs to the Sharks because of where I was born and raised. I was born in San Jose, California, and so the year I left was the year the Sharks came, and it was neat because regardless of whether or not you're a Flames fan, whether or not you're a Oilers fan or other. I see that hand in Calgary. Anyway, your hometown, you kind of have to root for it. And so that's where I've come from, was San Jose, California. San Jose is separated by a bunch of mountains, and on the other side of the mountain, and Chris could attest to this, is Santa Cruz, which was the land of milk and honey if you were a teenager. If you could beg, borrow, steal a car to cross over Highway 17, you'd be where the surf is, where the buskers' live music is, but dividing the city of Santa Cruz and the mountains is the Sequoia Redwood Forest. I'll ask, has anyone ever seen the Sequoia Redwood Forest in California? No one? Okay, anyone? On you guys? Okay, I got to see that hand in the back. Okay. Sequoia Redwood Forest is one of the most breathtaking, beautiful forests I've grown up in. Like my kids who grow up with the beauty of the prairies and the snow and the mountains and all that stuff, they're jaded with that. I was jaded with redwood trees. Redwood trees are probably one of the tallest trees in the world. There is the famous redwood tree in California that recently fell down that was so big that you could actually drive a car going either side. There was actually a road, and the tree grew around it. It was that big, that large. The forests, if for those of you who are Star Wars fans, in Return of the Jedi, that's where Endor was filmed, was the Sequoia Redwood Forest. Large, big trees. We went there a couple years ago, taking my kids to a tour of the forest. And this is kind of the metaphor I want to give you guys this morning, is about the coastal sequoia redwood tree. And so I wish this was a biblical metaphor, but there's a lot of Bible packed into this. But I want the mustard seed, if I had to have a wish for you guys, is that you would be sequoia redwood trees. Here's why. We went there and we saw how amazing these guys are. And as we did a tour, the tour guide was showing us the different trees, and that there was one story where there was a farmer who chopped down a redwood tree for lumber, built a fence out of it, and a few years later, the fence grew back into trees. As well as also, there was a forest fire that happened a few years back in Santa Cruz and burned up everything and left the husks of the tree. So the bark, which is flame retardant, survived, but that the insides were completely hollowed out. And in a few years, they grew back good as new. The sequoia redwoods at one time were endangered in the city of Santa Cruz. In the 1920s, 1930s, they were doing dynamite testing and TNT building, and the land was just ruined, wrecked with ash, sulfur, everything that could possibly kill something. And the industrialist who was doing this was about ready to destroy all of the trees, to clear cut, so he could have a big land, so he could do all his dynamite testing. His wife talked him out of it and said, could you leave at least a patch of 5 to 8 trees? Anything to make him happy, or her to happy, he did. And in 15 years' time, the forest grew back, reclaimed the land. Now, the question is how? How can a tree survive when the environment is so inhospitable and when everything is just working against these trees? How does a forest survive? And there's a concept that I'll get into later, but first off, redwoods are, to use a leadership term, self-differentiating, meaning they make their own forests. If a sequoia redwood tree is by the coast, now it's that weird mix of salt air and right kind of sunshine that makes them thrive, but if it's where they're supposed to grow, where they are intended to grow, a redwood tree will turn that into a forest. And it only takes 2 or 3 to grow an entire forest and to overtake it. This is the virtue of self-differentiation. It's the ability to set apart that healthy sense of otherness that is at the heart of this virtue. And this is sometimes really, really difficult when you're spending time with your neighbors and you're dealing with their issues, their problems, their dramas. And sometimes it's easy for you as someone who wants to take care of these folks to get into their issues and to lose boundaries and self. Self-differentiation is that ability to say, I am me, you are you, and I want to bring you health. I am responsible to you, not for you. I want to give you change. I want to bring you in some kind of redemption. And this is why the mustard seed, I think, works. Because you are amongst the people of where you serve. You are with the people you take care of. And yet there is enough of a difference to where you could resource them, help them, lead them, guide them, counsel them, support, do all those things that an outsider can do while still being amongst. That's the concept of self-differentiation. And self-differentiating leaders are the weird ones. I'll ask Calgary, is there anyone who's an oddball that would consider yourself the one who stands out, the one who is the tube socks and a black tie affair? Is there anyone? Okay, you're all pretty much the same. That's good. That's great. Edmonton, is there any? Okay, the nutballs, the crazy people?
This guy.
Yes. You guys are so important because there is an aspect of a redwood tree saying the ground may be trashed, it may be ash, it may be full of sulfur, but I still am going to grow. Almost in defiance of the unhealth of the land, the neighborhood that I'm in. And that's a key thing. Mike Yaconelli wrote in his book, Messy Spirituality, I wonder how many of us have turned away from Jesus, given up any hope of a spiritual life because we don't fit, because we aren't like everyone else, because our Christianity seems so different and strange from the rest of the churches. I wonder if we realize how anxious Jesus is to reach out and walk with us arm to arm. We need different people. And we also need to send this to our neighbors. That there are so many folks that have got the message in Edmonton and Calgary, the neighborhoods that we serve, that they'll never fit into a church. That nothing good will ever happen to them. And we're the self-differentiated redwood who says, no, we need you. Come, be unique, be your own, and change our neighborhood into a forest. We need your help. And so that's one idea. And this is also, by the way, for those who are theologically minded, this is just another word for holiness. When 1 Peter 1:14 through 16 reads, as obedient children, do not be conformed to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance, but just as he who has called you to be holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, be holy as I am holy. You know what holiness is? It's that set apartness. It's that enough of a difference to bring redemptive change into your world. God is holy. God isn't like us. But yet the incarnation tells us he walks among us, bringing us change. So, idea one. Idea two, redwoods change their forests. Now, one of the things it talks about on why a redwood can survive a forest fire is because a redwood is a conifer. Conifer, what's the song? Needles for leaves, cones for seeds. C is for conifer, my kind of tree. Anyone else knows that song? Arborists know that. You can sing that as an arborist. All tree planters will sing back with you. Anyway, it's a conifer. And so instead of seeds, it lays needles, and then the needles grow into trees. However, a redwood tree will lay 1,000 needles before any of those become a tree. That seems like a waste, isn't it? Like, where are the trees? Where are the numbers? Where are the results? Well, what's interesting about how God made redwoods is when they lay seeds, they're actually doing something that helps build trees besides a seed turning into a tree. They're preparing the soil. They're healing the soil. They're making it work again. And so when the TNT blasting happened in Santa Cruz and the ground was unrecoverable, it was recovered because of the redwoods constantly laying seeds again and again and again and again. And when I think of it in Ephesians, it says, prepare your feet, shod your feet with the readiness of the gospel, prepared to speak the gospel. I think we've misunderstood that. To when we talk about the gospel, we mean this intensely theological discussion that we're going to win. We're going to win the argument. And we win and we fight and we beat people up and we get them in a mercy hold intellectually till they say, uncle, and they become a Christian. They make this major life decision and then quickly they stop having addictions, they stop being weird, and they give 10% and they get involved with a church and everything is better. That conversation. Perhaps there's a bigger idea to spreading the gospel. Maybe instead of working so hard and making a decision, and this is, I'm speaking to the church world, not you guys get this, you get this. But the church world with Billy Graham and those things, yes, there is a decision. Yes, there is a sawdust trail, and I don't want to take that away from anyone. But at the same time, we're called to constantly be laying needles, seeds. Because part of it may be that someone does make a decision and follow Christ. But we're preparing the soil as well by lots of little decisions. And as N.T. Wright says, we say that the gospel of Jesus Christ saves. Saves from what? For someone who needs a warm place to sleep at night. The gospel is about saving them from the cold. For someone whom is married but living on the street and cannot get their stuff together. The gospel is about saving them. And salvation is so much mightier and bigger than just winning a theological discussion or argument. And the way it's done is a redwood always seeds and seeds and seeds and seeds. And you guys in the mustard seed, I think, get this idea to where when you're interacting with neighbors, constantly invite them to the kingdom. And it may be that invitation may look like a cup of coffee. That invitation may look like Pampers for a mother. That invitation may look like, but you're seeding and you're making the soil of Calgary, Edmonton, and wherever you are able to sustain trees. Last idea. And this is the one that I think makes the redwood the weirdest of all trees. And it's also the one that got my daughters the most excited. When we're going through the tour, we're asking, how did that fence become trees again? And he said, well, what's interesting is all redwoods are connected to each other. It's like ivy, to where you have an interlocking network of roots underneath the surface of this ground. And they all stem from what they call, and this is what my, at the time, 5-year-old daughter got super excited about, a fairy ring. It's a fairy ring that is a circle that then all spokes out into different trees. And so what happened with the farmer was he built a fence over the fairy ring. And then the fairy ring connected its roots to the fence, and then the fence had enough DNA into it. That's also how the trees survived a fire, was because the insides were hollowed up, but there was enough DNA substance inside the bark that it could replant itself, and then the ring reconnected it. And we in the church, I can say this only personally, I don't want to judge any other church people, although looks like I'm the only pastor in the room, so get away with it. Although, no one looks pastoral there. We in the church sometimes really turn a blind eye to our neighbors. I wish we loved our neighbor as ourselves. And a lot of times we failed that. And this is one of the reasons why we in the church need you guys. And this is also one of the reasons why you guys need other supports and networks. And then those other support and networks need the church. And that what it is God has created in order to heal and bring a forest back to Edmonton and Calgary. He's established fairy rings in our neighborhood of ways we can connect with each other, seek the mutual good, plant trees, have trees grow, trees seed and seed and seed. And slowly those little small decisions of salvation start healing the land, and so that a forest can grow again. And I oftentimes hear the passage in Hebrews, do not let us forsake the meeting together as some saints have done. And usually the application is to guilt and shame people into coming to Sunday morning. There you go. Fantastic. We've got 61. We had 57 last week. Now we're successful because we're 61. And every church has a weird magic number. And I say this to you guys because you guys laugh at that because your numbers is like what? Coffee. How many cups of coffee? That's the numbers we're dealing with. We're just whoever comes. Because the issues of your neighbors aren't going to go away anytime soon. So you will have a need here. But the idea is that passage does not speak about going to church. It means it's about interconnection. Let us not give up on each other. Let us not give up on the other Christians that could be of resource and help. Let us not give up on the folks who come to our services and programs, our neighbors. Let us continue to work together, as it also says in Philippians, may we spur each other on towards love and good deeds. Again, not about church attendance, but it is about creating that fairy ring interconnection where our roots are into each other. And that this is an image of empathy, where if a tree gets knocked down in your forest, you feel it. Because it is affecting the overall network. I asked the guy, would there ever be trees that would not be redwoods, but they could join the redwood network? And again, I'm already thinking of this image in the body of Christ. And the guy said in there, he says, I've never known that to be. He says, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I just don't know. I do know that most trees, their DNA actually rejects when the redwood network tries to engraft them in. It's a grafting process. And trees, just because they're not redwoods, they themselves reject the grafting process. However, there are a lot of trees that grow in the redwood forest that aren't redwoods and benefit the seeding process, the growth process, the mutuality. And there are so many people in Edmonton in Calgary who are better and richer and wiser because of you guys that are not believers of Jesus Christ. And yet they're part of the seeding, they're part of the ring, and they're part of the self-differentiation that takes place. And so if I just encourage you, keep plugging at it, keep being a network with each other, keep seeding, keep just doing the things that are invitations to the kingdom, and know that you are unique and different, and that part of that is you foster that within being in relationship with each other and within outside folks. And so as an outsider, we're praying for you guys, and we're glad that you're here. And thank you so much for the gifts you bring to our neighborhood. And so on that end, should I turn this back to you, or? Sure, we could do that. I would say open up for questions, but you'll start asking me more about redwoods, and that's all I know. That's it. Let's pray. God, I pray for a special blessing on our friends here. Special in the fact that I'm glad that they're here, and I'm glad that they are working with you and hearing your voice. And I would just ask that you would continue to work that way. God, may help them to make decisions on how to provide outside help and alien righteousness and unique solutions that are apart and set apart from the problems of the neighborhood. Pray that you would also work with them in being constantly seeding, constantly changing the soil of the land. And God, I would ask finally that the mustard seed would not be alone, that it would be a network and a being connection together with other organizations, other churches, other people, and individuals. And that through this fairy ring of trees, that your kingdom would come, your will be done in Edmonton, in Calgary, as it is in heaven. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you very much.
It's exactly 10:30. You're right on time and everything, Eric.
We started late.
I think a couple of you need to, Chris and Sean, you